Begin today the Gemara 3 lines from the bottom of the Amud on Kuf Beis Amud Beis. The last thing we learned yesterday was the Mishnah mentioned that there's something called anpilia, some kind of shoes or sort of socks that are made from material. So in one brayse it said that this is shoes, another brayse it says it's not shoes, and the Gemara Rava actually explained it depends. If it has some kind of a leather layer on it, so then it's shoes. If it's just only material, then it's not shoes. So here the Gemara brings a brayse that will prove the point that Rava said, and this is a brayse that says many more details regarding the halacha of chalitza. So we learned like Rava said, chalza b'minal hanifram. If chalitza was done with a shoe that's torn, but shachayfes reiver regel, it covers most of the foot. B'sandal hanifchas, or a sandal which the leather of it is broken because it's harder leather, so it's called broken. Shemekabel is reiver regel, and most of the foot could still go into it. B'sandal shal sham v'shal siv, or a sandal that's made from sham, siv, some kind of reeds or of what?
Russian bast.
Okay, or cork or bast. It's just those kind of materials. B'kava kiteya, or a person that is an amputee and he has a prosthetic leg. B'moik is some kind of also some felt kind of shoes. B'smichas haraglayim, a person that basically moves himself around with his, like sort of sitting, but he moves himself around with his hands, but he places on his feet some kind of supports or some kind of shields that it shouldn't get injured from the ground. Banpilya shel oir, and here it mentions these anpilya, the anpilya that have in it leather. V'achaletzes min agadol, and a chalitza that's done from with a gadol. The yavam that is a gadol. Whether this yavam is standing, sitting, or leaning on something. The chalitza is from a suma. This yavam is blind. Chalitza sakshera, the chalitza will be kosher. So all these cases, it's kosher. Some of these cases are kosher only b'diyevet. There's a discussion in Rishonim if these things are lechatchila or not. Aval b'minal nifram, if you have a torn shoe she'ein chayfes reiva regel, it doesn't cover most of the foot. B'sandal nifchas, the broken leather of a sandal she'ein makabel reiva regel, most of the foot doesn't go into it. Ub'smichas hayedayim, and a person that's moving around on his hands, and he has these shields for his hands not to injure himself, so it's not even on his feet. Ub'ampilya shel beget, and going back to this ampilya, these foot coverings that are made from material without any leather on it. The chaletzes min a cotton, and the chalitza was done with a cotton. The yavam is a cotton. So then chalitza sapsula. The chalitza will be patzel. That's the end of the brayse. So we see here in this brayse clearly the point that Rava said, that there's a difference between these ampilia if it's from leather or if it's from material. And Gemara is going to focus on a few different things that it said here in this brayse. It said kava kiteya. So if you have a prosthetic leg, so this could be used for a chalitza. So this prosthetic leg is usually made from some kind of wood. Usually it's not made from any leather material that comes from the hide of an animal. So mani, kava kiteya, when it says you can use this kava kiteya, prosthetic leg, mani. Whose opinion is this? Didn't we learn before that it has to be a shoe that comes from leather? The Gemara before brought a pasuk of oir tachash. That has to be from pasuk va'anchal tachash. So it has to be something from the hide of an animal. So who's the one that holds it? This is called a shoe as well. Says the Gemara, this is Rab Meiri. The Tanan in Masechta Shabbos, when it discusses regarding carrying on Shabbos, so there it says a kiteya, person that's amputated leg, yaitze bekav shaloi, he can walk around on Shabbos in the outside with his prosthetic leg. Divrei Rab Meir. Rab Meir says that even though it's made from wood and it's not a regular shoe, but still it has a halacha like a shoe for him. Rab Yosi Eiser. Rab Yosi says no, it's not allowed. Because it's not made like a regular shoe, it's just a piece of wood that's used as a prosthetic leg. You can't walk around with this outside in a Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. So we see here there's a machlekes about this, and Rab Meir considers this wooden prosthetic leg to be equivalent to a shoe that you can carry out on Shabbos. So therefore over here, regarding a yavam as well, it's considered to be a shoe even though it's not made from leather.
Why don't we just assume that he's talking about taking the leather shoe off of the prosthetic?
Over there in that Gemara, and I guess over there it's talking about the actual prosthetic leg, not the kav shaloi. It's talking about the prosthetic leg itself. So that's one detail that it said in the brayse, that even a wooden prosthetic leg is considered to be a shoe. You don't have to have it to be from material that comes from the hide of an animal. But now the question is, what did it say in the Braise? Bampilya shel beged. When you have these foot coverings that are made from material. So because it doesn't have in it the hide of an animal, so it's not good. So now that is asan l'Rabbanan. That is going according to the other opinion, according to Rabbi Yossi, that says that if it's not made from the hide of an animal, that it's not a shoe. So what's going on here? There's a contradiction in this Braise. Amar Abaye, so there's two interpretations here. Abaye says, with the Sefer Rabbanon, if the Sefer of that Braise is the Rabbanon, which says that it has to be from hide of an animal, so Reisha Nami Rabbanon. The Reisha also has to be Rabbanon. So then how could you use a prosthetic leg if it's not made from leather? So, but V'Reisha b'mechupa oir. It's talking about a prosthetic leg that does have on its surface some kind of covering from the hide of an animal. Amalei Rav, so Rav asks on this answer, Aval ein mechupa oir. If it's a prosthetic leg that's not covered with from the hide of an animal with leather, so then my puzzle. So then you would say that this prosthetic leg is puzzle. If so, the Tani Sefer Bampilya shel beged. In the Sefer of this Braise it says, it wants to give an example of something that's a foot covering that's not leather. And it gives the example of this Bampilya shel beged, this material covering. Why does it have to bring that example? Lifleig b'dida. Why doesn't it make a distinction, which would be a bigger chiddush, regarding this prosthetic leg itself? And it should say as follows: when is this prosthetic leg not good to be used for chalitza? Again, sorry. When is it good for chalitza? That is, if it is covered with some leather. But if there's no leather in it, it's just a piece of wood, then pasul. Then it would be possible. Instead of bringing the point of ampilya, which is material over here, why doesn't it say the point regarding the prosthetic leg itself, that there's a difference if it has a leather covering on it or not? Ela Amar, so therefore Rav says a different shot. Midereisha Rav Meir, if the reisha of that price is Rav Meir, that says that the shoe that's used for chalitza does not have to have material from an animal, it doesn't have to be oyer tachash leather. Seifa Nami Rav Meir. The Seifa is also Rav Meir. So if so, why for this anpilia, which is made from material, is it not a good covering? Why isn't it good for chalitza? So the answer is, there's another point here. Hai megin v'hai loy megin. This prosthetic leg shields the person, it protects the person. This sort of sock, this thick sock that a person wears that's made from material, it doesn't protect his foot b'chlal. So the issue is not only the fact that it's not made from the oir of an animal, it's b'chlal not used as a protection. So therefore, it's not good for chalitza, even according to Rab Meir. Amar Rab Meir said, Haiman de chalitz, when you do chalitza, tzarech lemitchesei lekare. So the person that's wearing the shoe has to press down his foot onto the ground. And the point is that when the shoe comes off, it should be clear that she took off the shoe and that it wasn't loose and it slipped off on its own. Amalei Ravashi la Meimar. So Ravashi asks a Meimar about this. But Vatanya, in the Braise we quoted before, it said that when you do chalitza, bein noimid, bein yeshiv, bein muta, you can be standing, sitting, or leaning. Now, typically, when a person is leaning on something else, he's not pressing down his foot on the floor. So how can we say that you have to press down your foot? So he says it's true. You could be standing, sitting, or leaning, but you have to add to that ulo oilam dedachas lekare. Even though usually a person is not pressing down his foot on the ground when he's leaning on something else, but here he should press his foot down on the ground. V'amar Ameimar said also, Haiman de maski alichas dekare, a person that has a twisted ankle or a twisted foot, and he instead of walking on the heel of his foot, he walks on the other side of the foot. Lichasa literally means the hard side of the foot. The heel of a person's foot has a softness to it. On the other side of the heel, so it's hard, and his foot is twisted, and that's what he walks on. Again?
He's not on his toes?
No, it doesn't mean on the toes. It means on the sort of the back of the foot. Instead of the heel of the foot, or I guess you call it the top of the foot, it's twisted foot, and that's what he walks on. And that's how he wears his shoes. I'm not sure exactly how it's possible to walk that way. He probably needs crutches to support himself, but his feet are the other way around. So lechalitz, you can't do chalitza for this. It's not the regular way how you wear shoes. So you can't do chalitza. Amalei Ravashi la Meimar. So Ravashi says to Meimar, one of the things we said before in the Braise was, Vatanya, we learned before, smuchas haraglayim. A person that can't walk on his feet, so apparently the reason is because his feet are twisted, he can't use his feet as a support, and instead he moves himself around with his hands. And it says that those smuchas haraglayim, so nevertheless, this person does put onto his feet some kind of supports or some kind of shields that it shouldn't get injured from the ground. And it says that those smuchas araglayim that are put on his feet, even though he's not using his feet regularly to support himself on the heels of his feet, chalitza is good. So lav, don't you think this means the chalitz ba'iyu, that he's doing chalitza even though he's not walking regularly on the heels of his feet? Says the Gemara, loy. It's not regarding this individual that's not walking with the heels of his feet. The yav leila acher v'chalitz. If someone else, which is walking with the heels on his feet, and he uses these smuchas, these kinds of shoes, or these whatever it is that you use as a support, he gives it to someone else, and that guy does chalitza, then it's going to be good. But if this person that's actually not walking on the heels of his feet does chalitza, it will not take effect. Amar Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi said, Lamai de ka'amar ameimar. So based on the halacha of ameimar, that if you don't walk on the heels of your feet, then you can't do chalitza. So lav bar ube chalitz, v'lav bar kifuf chalitz. These two individuals, one of them his name was bar ube, and the other one his name is bar kufa. These two individuals cannot do chalitza. So if anyone remembers, this is a Gemara that we learned to Ma'id Cotton. So over there, these were two people that they used to give a hesped, a eulogy. And they said something that offended Rav Ashi. And Rav Ashi had a big paid on them. And because of this, their feet got twisted. And so he says, these two individuals that their feet got twisted, they will never be able to do chalitza. Then it said in the Mishnah, that a person, chas v'shalom, his foot is amputated. So as long as he has, from the knee below, so whatever he's wearing on his foot or on his leg, from the knee downward, would be counted for chalitza, but above the knee is not counted for chalitza. I'll ask you a question from the halacha of being oile regel. What's the halacha there? Raglayim. So when it speaks about the halacha of a shalosh regalim, when it says to be oile regel, the Torah refers to Yom Tov as shalosh regalim. The 3 Yomim Tovim are called regalim. What does this mean? Prat lebale kavim. From here we learn out that a person that has an amputated leg, so he's not obligated in the mitzvah to be oile regel, and that's including even if he has his leg to his knees. So why are we saying that if you have your legs to your knees, so from the knees downward is considered to be that you have a foot, and you can remove the shoe from the foot, it's not considered to be a foot? And says the Gemara, it's not the same thing. Shani hacha, here by chalitza it's different, because here the pasuk says mei al ragloi. It doesn't say remove the shoe miragloi. That word al is extra. It says me al ragloi, meaning that you're removing it even from an area that's above the foot, all the way up to the knee. But if that's what you're learning from the word al, so why are you stopping it at the knee? Maybe that should mean that even if a person chas v'shalom his leg is amputated all the way up to his thighs, and he has some kind of a shield, some kind of a shoe, a covering that he uses, and if that's removed, that should also be good. Why only till the knees? And says the Gemara, Me'al, the pasuk says from what's above your foot, and so that means the leg that's above the foot is okay to be used for removing the shoe from there. But v'loy me'al de me'al, but not above your knees, which is higher up. It's there, so you have the foot, then you have the leg that's above the foot, and then there's another joint by the knee, and then there's what's above that. So that's already too far up. That's not going to be included in the drasha of me'al. Rav Papa, based on this, Rav Papa says shmami no. From here we could learn, Hai istevira ad aranochis, from the ankle down to the heel. So it's one bone that goes down to the heel. You have the joint at the ankle, and so there's the foot, and then the ankle is a joint, and then you have from the ankle to the knee, and that's above the foot, and that's what's considered to be above the foot that's acceptable to do for chalitza. But if there would be another joint between the ankle and the heel, so then that area of the leg between the ankle and the knee would not be considered to be above. It's above. It's 2 times up, so that wouldn't be good. So it must be that from the ankle down, it's all it's all 1 foot. There's no other joint over there. If you would say mifsak pasik, that from the ankle down to the heel there is another separation in the bone of the foot and there's some other joint over there, so then havele iu me'al, so then by the ankle it's already above that heel, above the bone of the heel, and then v'shaika me'al the me'al, and then the leg that's above the ankle should already be above what's the heel. So that would be too far. So how could the Mishnah say that you can do chalitza even with a shoe that's all the way up to the knees? That's what Rav Papa proves from here. But Ravashi says about this that not necessarily is it a raya. Even if you're going to say that below the ankle there is some other separation in the bone, there's some other joint in the bone before it comes down to the heel, but nevertheless, that's all considered to be part of one foot, even if there's another joint there. Because kol de bahadi kara kekara dami. Everything that's within the foot, it's like part of one, it's all called a foot, and even if there's another joint, it's not separate. So therefore it's understood that what's above the ankle is considered to be above the foot. It's not me'al, it's not two levels up. So it said in the Mishnah, but what's above the knees, that's not considered to be part of the foot. So here the Gemara is going to bring a bunch of different sources from Psukim where it seems like that the term regel, foot, is referred to the person's foot all the way up to the thighs. Even that is considered to be the feet. So how can we say that above the knees does not have the term regel to it? So Masav Rav Kahana asks regarding a woman that gives birth. The pasuk says, what comes out after the birth, and it comes out from between her feet. And that refers to much higher up, the thighs. So you see, even this is considered to be the feet. Abaye says, when a woman crouches to give birth, she pushes her heels into her thighs, and therefore and she gives birth. So even though it says raglea, it doesn't refer to the thighs, it refers to the heels. When she crouches, it comes up. Tashema, there's another pasuk where it uses the term regel for much higher up. Lo'asa raglav, lo'asa svamai. He did not remove the hairs of his feet and or his mustache. This is regarding a story there. He was mourning. So the hairs that it's talking about over here is much further up, the pubic hairs, which is by the area of the thighs of a person, and that is considered to be regel. So we see regel is all the way up. And it says the Gemara lishna malya. It's just using a more refined language, so it uses the term regel. Tashema, another pasuk where it says, Vayave Shaul lahasachas raglov. When Shaul came to relieve himself to urinate, and it uses the term raglov. This is the term in the different psukim that it uses for this, and it says raglov. So even though we're talking about much higher up in the person's legs, the thighs. Again, the Gemara answers lishne malya. The pasuk is using a refined expression. A third place where you see a similar thing, Tashema achmeisachu raglov b'cheder amakira. He's relieving himself in a certain room, so it uses the term raglov. Again, the Gemara says lishnim ma'alya. It's using a refined language. Another place it says bein ragleo. This is talking about a story of Yal and Sisra, which the Gemara is going to focus on soon. So Yal went and had many relations with Sisra in order just to weaken him, and then afterwards she killed him. And it uses the term over there that he went and was bein ragleha. So it uses the term ragleha, even though it's not referring to the feet, but it's referring to much higher up, and still it uses the term ragleha. Again, the Gemara answers lishna ma'alya. It's using a refined expression. Now, regarding this story of Yal and Sisra, she went and killed him after this. So Amar Rabbi Yechanan says, Sheva be'ilois ba loisei rasha b'isei hayayim. 7 times she had relations with him on that day. And you see it from the pasuk where it uses 7 different expressions. Shenema ben raglea, kora nofal shachav, ben raglea kora nofal, ba'asha kora shom nofal shoded. So all the terms in the pasuk here, nofal and kora, it says 7 different terms, hinting to this, that she brought him to have relations with her 7 different times in order to weaken him. And then she killed him. So the Gemara now asks on this, how did she do this? But she's having hana from these relations, just she's having hana from this aveda. So Taisus actually explains the Gemara's question is not regarding how could she be over on this Isser of Gilead Arayis with this guy. Because the Taisus springs, just like we find in the Gemara regarding Esther, where the Gemara explains why it wasn't an issue for Esther, and here she was doing this to save Klal Yisrael, to kill him. That's not the Gemara's question. Rather, Taisa says the Gemara's question is based on a Gemara in other places where it says that this Yal, that was a Neviah, she was on a higher level even than the Imais because of what she did here. So the Gemara is asking, how could you say that she's in a higher level if still she had Anah from this Aveda that she did? And the Gemara answers on that, she had no Hana whatsoever. Why not? Any good that comes from a Rasha, Roi etzel tzadikim. For tzadikim, since they hate the Rasha to such an extent, they are disgusted by it. And therefore for a tzaddik, she had absolutely no hana, no pleasure whatsoever of being with this Rasha. Where do you find this? Shenema, the pasuk says, by Yaakov Avinu, Hishamalocha pentadaberim Yaakov mitoy vadra. The Eibishter tells Lavan, when he was chasing Yaakov, be careful, do not talk to Yaakov about anything, nothing good and nothing bad. So now Bishleim Ra L'chaya, this the Eibishter tells him, don't talk to Yaakov anything bad. That's understood, that's rightfully so. You shouldn't harm Yaakov. Elotoiva Mailoi, if Lavan wants to say something good, something positive to Yaakov, so then why not? Elishmam, what you see from this is, the point is, any favor that a Rasha wants to do for a tzaddik, because of the tremendous hatred that a tzaddik has to a Rasha, so therefore he's not interested in anything from the tzaddik, from the Rasha, that is, whether for good, for bad, or for the good. But the Gemara questions this source, because Bishleima Hasam, over there you could say, the reason why Hashem is warning Lavan not to speak to Yaakov for good or for the bad, the reason is because Dilma Mitkel Eshma Davedes Kechavim. He may mention the name of his Avodah Zarah when he comes to speak to Yaakov, as he actually did. He was only chasing after Yaakov because he tells him, as Rashi here brings, Lama ganafta salakai, that Rachel went and took his Avodah Zarah, so he was trying to find where his Avodah Zarah is. So over there, the Eibishter tells Lavan, don't communicate with Yaakov because he's going to use his name of Avodah Zarah. But Elahacha, however, over here, regarding the relation between Yal and Sisra, Mayra Ikke. What evil is there if there's something, a benefit or a pleasure that there is? So true, it's coming from a Rasha, but what exactly evil is there in this that she would not receive any pleasure? Answers the Gemara, the evil is the Kashada Bazuama. If she's having relations with him, he throws into her some impurity, a contamination. Rav Yechanan said, so by the time of Chet Eitzadas, besides the fact that she ate from the fruits of the tree, so what happened then is, not the Nachash, the snake, came and had relations with Chava. Hitl Bazuama. So the snake put a contamination into Chava. So then that contamination continued in creation all the way till the time of Matan Torah. And Yisrael Sha'omda al Har Sinai, when Yidden received the Torah, Paska Zuamasan. So then this contamination was removed. And then, so that's for Yidden though. But Ovdei Kechavim Shalei Amda al Har Sinai, but a guy that was not at Har Sinai, Loi Paska Zuamasan. That contamination was never removed. So therefore, for Yal to have relations with this guy Sisra contaminates her. So therefore, she had no pleasure in this whatsoever. From this Gemara, by the way, you see that even though there is another place where the Gemara says that after Yidden sinned at Chet Egel, the contamination, the Zuama, came back. But what you see from this Gemara is that the contamination that came back was not to the same extent as it was in the beginning, when the Nachash threw the contamination into Chava. Because then, the Yid and the guy would be similar, that they both have that same contamination back again. So why are we making a distinction between Yal and Sisra? Elamai, whatever contamination came back at the time of the Egel, it was not the same. The effect of Matan Torah is still there, that the Yidden do not have that same Zuama as a guy has. Chalza b'minol she'ena shaloicholo. A person that, the shoe that the Yavam was wearing is not his own shoe. So the Mishnah says that the Chalitza is good. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa the source for this. Naloi. It says that she removes his shoe. So Ainli Ela Naloi. I would think that means only if she removes the shoe that belongs to him. Nal Shakalada Minayin. How do I know that if it's someone else's shoe that the Yavam is wearing and she removed it, it's also good? Talmud Laima, so it says Nal Mikol Mokim. It says there in the pasuk by Chalitza, it says again the term Nal twice, so we know any shoe, even if it's not his shoe. In Kema Talmud Laima Naloi, so then why does the pasuk use the term Naloi that it's his shoe? The answer is has to be Naloi Haroi Loi, has to be a shoe that's fitting for him. Prat Legadol, that excludes a shoe that's too big of a size. Shein Yochalalach Boy can't walk with it. Or Prat Lekotna Shein Echayfer Roiv Ragle, or in the reverse, it's a shoe that's too small and it doesn't cover most of his foot. Uprat le sandal hamasulayim, and also excluding a sandal that doesn't have a sole to it. Shein le'ekev, it doesn't have the sole. The Gemara brings an incident that happened regarding this halacha here. Abaya avakoy kamed Rav Yosef. Abaya was in front of Rav Yosef. Abaya was always learning about Rav Yosef. You always have in the Gemara discussions between Abaya and Rav Yosef. Asa Yevama lachleit. So this Yevama came for a chalitza. Amalei, so Abaye says, Rav Yosef says to Abaye, Havle sandalach. Give the Yavam your sandal that you're wearing. so he can do chalitza with it. So what did Abaye do? Yav le sandal de smala. He gave the Yavam his left sandal. Why did he do this? Because Abaye held this halacha that a Yavam could use someone else's shoe or sandal is not lechatchila. So he wanted to see what Rav Yosef is going to say when he's going to give him his left sandal. So Amalei Rav Yosef says to Abaye, when did Rabbanan say that you can use a left shoe, even if you're putting it on your right foot, but you can use a left shoe? We learned this in the Mishnah. When is that true? Do you have it? After the fact, it's accepted. But l'chatchila mi amar, l'chatchila, could you use a left shoe? Why are you giving him the left shoe? Amalei, so Abaye said, if so, ihachi sandal she'ein shaloi. I'll ask you, similar, the same thing is also with this that you're telling me to give him my shoe. To use, that the Yavam should use a sandal that's not his, Navi, the same thing. When did the Rabbanan say that you can use a sandal that's not yours? Di'evet. Only be di'evet. But l'chatchila miyamar? L'chatchila, should chalitza be done with a shoe that doesn't belong to him? So Abaye was basically asking Rav Yosef, why are you telling me to give my sandal to the Yavam and that's how chalitza will be done? Let the Yavam get his own shoe, so it should be done l'chatchila. Amalei, so Rav Yosef explains to Abaye, Hachi kaminalach. This is what I meant to say to you. Hav le va'akni le. Don't just give it to him to borrow. Give it to him and give it to him as a gift, like a matana manas lahachze. Give it to him that it should be his. He should acquire it, and he should be able to do chalitza properly. That's what I meant you should do. Then it said in the Mishnah, sandals.
Do you have left or right, or do you have? No, it doesn't make a difference. Left.
No, it does make a difference. So the chatchila you have to give the right shoe. Okay, but no, on the right, it has to be on the right foot. What?
Did it say somewhere?
What? That has to be on the right foot. Next Mishnah. Next Mishnah we'll learn it. Sandal shall eitz. If you're using a sandal made from wood, so in our Mishnah it said that it's kosher. So man Tana, who's the Tana that says this? Amashmul Rab Meiri. This is Rab Meir. The Tanan, as we learned before, Hakiteya Yaitze B'kav Shaloi Divrei Rab Meir. Rab Meir says in Shabbos, person that's amputee, so he can walk out with his kav, with his prosthetic leg, even though it's made from wood. Divrei Rab Meir. So we see Rab Meir holds that it's equivalent to a shoe. And Rabbi Yossi says you can't walk out with this wooden prosthetic because it's not equivalent to a shoe. Like we quoted before, the point is that it doesn't have to come from material that's leather from an animal. Avur the Shmuel, the father of Shmuel, said that we interpret the Mishnah differently. That this sandal that's made from wood also has a leather covering to it. And therefore everybody agrees that it would be good to use. Rav Papi says in the name of Rav, sandal hamuzgar. A sandal that's musgar. What's musgar? It's locked. Locked is talking about a mitzayra, and there are two different stages by a mitzayra. If when you detect the tzaras and you come to the kayin, so the kayin has to inspect it, and then he has to lock it up for a week to see what's going to happen with the condition of this nega. That's musgar. And then there's what's called muchlit. After the week, and you come and you verify that it's actually a nega, and you make it tameh. So this sandal, if it has a nega on it, but it's still just at that stage where it's not for sure tameh, it's only locked up. So you should not do chalitza with this sandal. Vim chalza, but if chalitza was done with it, chalitza sekesheira. B'diavad the chalitza is good. Sandal hamuchlit, but if it's a sandal that has a nega on it and it was already determined it's muchlit, it's definite that it's a nega. You can't do chalitza with it. Vim chalza chalitza psula. If chalitza was done with it, the chalitza will be pasul. Now, what's the reason for this? So the basis of this entire Gemara here will be a concept which is called Kesusi Mechtes Shiure, which means that this shoe that you wear for chalitza has to have a minimum size. It has to fit the foot, like we said before, most of the foot. Anything that has to have a minimum size, if it has the tumah of the tzaras in it, what do you do with a garment that has tzaras on it? You're supposed to burn it. So because it now was confirmed that it has a tzaras and it's destined to be burnt, once it's destined to be burnt, we consider it to be as if it's already burnt. It's like it's crushed and burnt already, and therefore it doesn't have the size. It's missing the minimum size. That's why it would be pasul. That was the first opinion here. Now, but Rav Papa, though, Mishmei de Rava, Rav Papa repeated in the name of Rava different. Amar, he said that Echad sandal amuzger, whether the sandal has this nega, which has not been confirmed, it's just being it's locked up, and you're still inspecting to wait and see. The Echad sandal amuchlet, or the sandal that has a nega and it is already confirmed. Never loy tachlitz boy lechatchila. You should not do chalitza with this. But chalitza sekshera. B'diavad that the chalitza was done, the chalitza will be kosher. We don't consider it to be as if it's already burnt up and it's missing the minimum shear. No, it's here, it exists, it covers the foot, and it's an acceptable chalitza. So now, based on this concept, whether I say something that's destined to be burnt, Do I view it as if it's already burnt and it has no shiur? The Gemara will ask a few questions on this concept. Meisvei, so we have another halacha regarding ktsaras. It says, Bayis HaMusker, you have a house that has a nega on it, and also it was not yet confirmed that it's a nega. It was the house was locked up. It'll be metame, a person that's inside of it. So this is not talking about a person that walks inside, but it means if you stick your hand inside through a window, so from the inside you'll become tamei. Muchlet, if it's a house that was already confirmed that it's a nega, so then if you touch the walls of this house, whether from the inside or from the outside, either way you'll become tamei. Now both of these houses, whether it was confirmed or it was just locked up to inspect it, either way mitamen bibiyah. If you walk into the house, so then you will become tamei. Rashi brings here the psukim that you learn out from Bahabal Abayis. From there you learn out that either way, if you walk into the house, you'll become tamei. But the question now is, if you're going to say that something that's destined to be burnt, it's as if it's already burnt. So over here, what happens to a house? After it's confirmed that it has a nega, what are you supposed to do to the house? You're supposed to break down the walls. You're supposed to break down this house. So how can you say that the person that would walk into this house becomes tamei? How do you become tamei? Because you entered and walked into this house. But veleke, since this house is destined to be demolished, so it's as if the house is not there. Just like something that's destined to be burnt, you say that it's as if it doesn't have that size anymore. So this house is as if it's burnt or already demolished already. So why would you be tamei if you walk into it? And says the Gemara, Shani Yasam. You're right, the concept could still be true, but over there it's different. The pasuk says, V'notas es habayis, you should demolish the house, and what we learn from that is, Afilu b'shas netitze kari bayis. Even when you're demolishing it, it still is considered to be a house. It doesn't say demolish the walls of the house, because it's not a house anymore. It calls it a house. Even though it's destined to be demolished, it still has a halach of a bayis, of a house, and if you walk in it, you'll become tamei. Another similar question we see regarding a nega, Tashema matlis sheyesh by shalosh al shalos. You have a piece of material that has the minimum size of 3 by 3 finger breadths. For tumah, this is the smallest size that could be makabel tumah, because that's the smallest piece of garment that a poor person would deem significant to use. So even though the threads of this garment does not have the size of a kezayis, meaning it's very, very thin threads, and if you measure all the threads together, it does not have the amount of a kezayis. Nevertheless, if most of it entered into a house, so again, we're talking about this, it has a nega on it. So most of it entered into a house, tahir. Again, let me read this again. Kivin shenichnas ruba lebayis tahir tim asahu. So if most of this little piece of garment, which has a nega on it, enters into a house, it'll make the house tamei. Even though the full garment did not enter into the house, but if most of it entered into the house, it'll become tamei. Similar to what the halacha is regarding a mace, that anything that's over a mace, there's a halacha of tumah of a oihel. So if you have a piece of a garment that has nega on it, and it comes under the roof of a house, so then everything in the house will become tamei. But over here, not even the entire piece of garment went into the house. Most of it went into the house. It'll make the house tamei. So now, my love, don't you think, what kind of a garment are we talking about over here? Muchletes, a piece of garment that has a nega on it, which has been confirmed that it's a nega. Now, if it's been confirmed that it's a nega, what's the halacha of a garment that's been confirmed that it's a nega? It has to be burnt. So if it has to be burnt, you said before, anything that's destined to be burnt is already considered like it's already burnt. So why, if most of it comes into the house, do I say that it's rive in the house, and therefore it's like it's in the house and it makes everything in the house tamei? Apply this halacha that it's as if it's already burned and therefore it's not in the house. Says the Gemara, similar to what you said before, loy musgeres. We could say we're talking about this garment that has not been confirmed yet that it's tamei. It's only musgeres. It's in that week that you're locking it up or you're checking to see if it'll be tamei or not. So therefore, that's why over here you can't apply this halacha that it's like it's burnt. The halacha of burning it does not apply yet. It is tamei, but you don't have to burn it yet. Ihachi frekta Gemara, but that can't be, because if so, aim is seifa. What does it say in the seifa of that braisa? If you have this piece of garment that's very small, it's only a 3 by 3 finger breadths, but the threads of this little piece of garment are very thick threads, and because of the thickness, it has the size of a few kezaisim. So then, so then, if only one kezayis of this piece of garment enters into the house, it'll make the house tamei. Now, from where does this shiur of kezayis come from? Why by a nega? Usually by regular tumah, the shiur is not a kazayis when it comes to a piece of garment. Usually the shiur is 3 finger breaths. Why over here all of a sudden by a tzaras is there a shiur of a kazayis? Now, if you're going to say we're talking about an actual nega that's been confirmed to be a nega, so where does the shiur of a kazayis come from? It comes from the following: that hainu the iskish lemeis. The halacha of a nega is, Rashi brings the psukim, we compare the nega to the halacha of the tumah of a mace. Just like by a mace, a kazayis of a mace, it brings tumah, so too the kazayis of this confirmed nega will bring tumah. Eli Yamrit Musgeres, but based on what you said before, we're not even talking about a confirmed nega. It's just a Musgeres. It's tummy because it was being locked up to inspect it if it'll become tummy or not. So why would this be compared to a mace? The shiur of a kazayis should not apply over here. The shiur of kazayis only applies to a confirmed nega. So therefore, the Gemara now says you're right. We're talking over here about an actual confirmed nega. So why over here do I not consider this to be as if it's already burnt? Why does it cause tumah? So the Bach here adds, like Rashi says, Elo shani hasam. There it's different. The amakrav is saraf es beget. You should burn that garment, which means afilu b'shas reifa. Even after you burn it, kari beget. It's still considered to be a garment. Like we said, similar to what we said before. Even though it's destined to be burnt, it still has the halacha of a garment. If that's what the pasuk here says regarding the tumah of tzaras, we should learn from here regarding every isser. Anything that's destined to be burnt, but still, until it's burnt, it's still considered to be in existence. Why can't I learn that from this pasuk? Answers the Gemara, isser mituma loy gamrina. You cannot learn all other halachas of isser from what the Torah says regarding tumah. Tumah is a unique chiddush with its own set of halachas, and you can't learn from tumah to other isurim. Okay, let's just finish off the concept here. It's an easy piece over here. We can tell the Mishnah, where the Gemara finishes off the halacha regarding this. Amar Rave, Hilchased, the halacha is, Echad sandal amusker, you're using a sandal that was a nega, that was locked up. Vechad sandal shemuchlet, a sandal that has a nega that's been confirmed as a nega. Vechad sandal shel avedis kechavim, a sandal that's being used to put it on an avedis zara. It's worn by an actual avodah zarah. Like tachlites, lachatchil, you should not do chalitza with this. It's disgusting to be used for chalitza. But vim chalza, chalitza sekshera, b'diyeved, the chalitza will be kosher. And so if it has a neg on it, we don't consider it to be as if it's burnt already. And Rashi here says, even this sandal is used for avodah zarah, even though if it's avodah zarah, how could you use this? So Rashi says, because it's not something which has to be burnt, because something that's part of avodah zarah, there is an option of being mevatel the avodah zarah. You'll ask a question, you're having hana from avodah zarah. How could you have hana from avodah zarah? So Rashi says a mitzvah is not hana. So you're not having hana from the avodah zarah. Okay, so that's in all these cases. But shel takrayvis avedis kechavim, if this is a shoe that's been brought as an offering, as like a carbon for the avodah zarah, so then, or v'shal irani dachas, or it's a shoe that came from irani dachas, a city that the whole city served avodah zarah, and it all has to be burnt. V'shal zakin ha'asel l'chvaydai, an older person. This is actually talking about a person that passed away, and it's being used for the tachrichim, for the shrouds of this person that passed away. So then, like tachlites, it should not be used for chalitza. V'im chalza chalitza sapsula. If the chalitza was done, then the chalitza will be pasul. So over here, when it comes to dirani dachas, because it's destined to be burnt, we consider it as if it's burnt already. Regarding the mitzayda, the Gemara before brought the pasuk v'saraf esabege, that even though it's destined to be burnt, it's not as if it's burnt. But by dirani dachas, it's as if it's burnt already. Amalei Ravina le Ravashi, so Ravina says to Ravashi, if you're using a shoe that is, that's made for tachrichim, so the lavli lucha of it, the reason why you can't use it for the shoe for chalitza is because this is not a shoe that's made to be used when a person is walking. It's for a dead body. So the Beidin and Nami, if so, the Bezdin, what kind of a chalitza shoe did they usually use for chalitza? It was a special chalitza shoe that the Bezdin had that they used for this purpose. Lavli lucha of it. It's also not made for walking. It's a shoe that the Bezdin keeps for this purpose. So if it's not used for walking in it, why should it be used? How could it be used for chalitza? So he answered him, Ilu mazgi be'shlucha de beidina. If the shliach of a bezdin decides that he wants to use this chalitza shoe that the bezdin keeps, and he decides to use it and walk in it, mikapte le'daina, will the dayanim care about this? They would let him use it. So even though it's not usually used, but it could be used. So therefore, it could be used for chalitza as well. Shabbos.